Okay. Good afternoon. It's 2 o'clock and the Kent County Ad Hoc Open Meeting Act Committee come to order. So let's have a roll call, please.
Williams,
Present.
Linder, Iqbal,
Present.
Pirog,
Present.
Tepe. Mr. Tepe?
Deputy here.
We have quorum.
Okay, thank you. The second item is the public comments. We have one speaker from Algonquin, Mr. Elvelar. Yeah.
How's that? Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I am speaking on the agenda topic today. I listened with great interest at the executive committee discussion of this ordinance that you are considering as far as expanding the use beyond when the public COVID emergency is over. I know there's currently the governor's current declarations, so it's not until after that takes place. And I want to echo some of the comments that I heard from the executive committee meeting earlier this month. Yes, Zoom has made this convenient for the public to watch. And yes, I can understand, particularly those of y'all who are still working full-time jobs or maybe even part-time jobs or semi-retired versus fully retired. This is an advantage. But I will recommend that you listen to what was said at the executive committee. All of y'all are elected officials. You represent us, the public. And while the multiple committee meetings during the month, and add to that the forest preserve, takes a lot of your time, it is vital that the public sees you working. And when it comes to talk to all of y'all, that you're present and not just on a screen in Zoom. If there is any way to either through the county board rules or through the ordinance itself to mandate your physical presence during the full regular county board meeting, I would strongly ask you to do that, because that is when you're most likely going to have members of the public in person. And yes, I understand if someone is sick, that's different, but we're most of the time at a public meeting of the full board, that should be stipulated. I don't know if you have the ability to slice and dice as to where the full board meetings, as well as maybe some of the larger committee meetings, and every committee is important, including this one. So I'm not going to try to stack rank that, but I would ask that the full board meetings, whether it's a special or the regular, requires the physical presence of county board members. That's at least once a month. And I don't think that's asking a lot of board members to do that. And I know, like I said, I live in Member Caius's district. I too drive from Algonquin, and I know Mr. Caius is very diligent to be online and to be physically present. And I ask that all of y'all can share that same due diligence to ensure that the public sees you, and when the public needs to address you, more likely to happen at the full board meetings, that you are here. And something I would like you to consider, whether it's out of scope of this ordinance or maybe through rules. Some of y'all, and I see a lot of y'all have your notebooks and your laptops there, and a lot of you turn on your Zoom screens. And sometimes, just from an audience perspective, please be cognizant that unless you're speaking, you should have your cameras off. And something that you may not take into consideration, depending on the time of day, when the sun is shining onto your computer screen and onto your camera, it does create a visual distraction to where I can't even look at the screen if the sun is shining directly into a camera. So that is something that I would suggest. Camera presence, unless you're actually speaking, is when you turn on that camera on your laptop. And sometimes I'll have my own camera on too. But when you're not speaking, you may want to keep that off. And just like your microphone, to turn on your camera when you speak. It's just, if any of you all have seen when the sun can shine through it the right way, it is a visual distraction. And some senior citizens cannot take that. So with that, I will Look forward to hearing your work, but please mandate, at least for the full county board meetings, members are physically present in this room for those meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. The next item is the draft of the ordinance. This is a single item, and I believe you all have the draft. And I would like a motion to put.
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion on this one?
I guess I'd like to say a few things, and I apologize, Michelle, but I didn't get your email until the time for me to comment was passed. So there's just a few things that I wanted to bring up. One of the things about this ordinance is that it requires us,
Who is speaking, please? Who is
Williams,
speaking?
Williams,
Thank you.
to have our video on, and I think that's important. I think it's less important though for committee meetings. If you're attending a full county board meeting, first of all, I agree with the speaker that we should try to be here, but there's times where we can't. And the nice thing about this technology is it allows us to participate, even though we otherwise might not be able to be here. So our voice can be heard and we can represent our constituents. But I'll give you an example. I was driving out to Colorado with my son Thursday, and there was a JPS meeting, and I participated on my phone via Zoom. And I decided not to use the video because it's just very awkward when you're on your iPhone, you know, weird angle, and it didn't make me look that good. I need all the help I can get to begin with. So I just think that maybe we could have some flexibility as to the video only for the board meeting, and then optional or an ability to have the video excused by approval of the chair, or some flexibility on the committee assignments.
Mr. Linders.
Yeah, I've spoken with a couple of the people who have jobs and therefore use Zoom more than others. And in general, in the spirit of what Mr. Avalar said, most of them said, you know, for the main board meeting, I'm going to do my very best to take some time off work and come in here. I think, though, that to mandate that says, well, then you can't really be sick or have an emergency on board meeting day. We don't determine when we're going to be sick. So I don't think mandating that they need to be present for a specific meeting. And all due respect, Mr. Avalar, I understand your point, but I just don't think that that makes sense. I think that if someone is going to be sick and able to Zoom, it shouldn't make any difference which meeting it is. And again, as I say, those that I've spoken to said, just as Mr. Williams said, we make every effort to find a way to get here on that day of the main meetings.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
I have to, and Michelle Neerman is here and she can help go through the actual state ordinance. But there are restrictions to the state ordinance, and my understanding is that we can't be less strict than the state ordinance. We can be more restrictive if appropriate. So to go and I'm reading from your report on January 6th, Mr. Linder, because I know you did some research on this, and it's in the ordinance, the state statute, I should say. But here's the exemptions for any meeting: personal illness or disability, employment purposes of the business of the public body. Employment purposes, meaning, okay, you're working. Businesses of the public body, meaning you're not here. Or a family or other emergency. And those are the only reasons that you are not required to attend. Now, any of these has to be approved of beforehand. Notice has got to be given to the clerk, who then notifies my office, the chairman's office, and then the chairman then, my understanding, will give that approval of whether or not that board member may attend. So it has to be advance notice. And if those are the restrictions that are currently in place, whether or not it's by video, by Zoom or by phone, which I think it's what is restricted in this law, I think we can possibly include Zoom as another opportunity for that.
Yeah, you could be restrictive and say that the audio is not allowed. That's a restriction. We can add restrictions.
But I think we all support the Zoom technology.
The use of the term video, Michelle Neerman, Assistant State's Attorney, the use of the term video is meant to encompass all types of different types of software.
That's good. That's
Mhm.
good. All right, so Zoom is still allowed. So those are the restrictions. So for the board members, whether it's a committee or not, are required to attend in person, according to the way I read this. So if I'm not reading it correctly, if there's another interpretation of that, it's a very well-defined process for attendance.
And these are, Madam Chair or
Uh,
Mr. Chairman?
Miss
Please.
Miss Bates,
Please, please.
Miss Bates, please hold on.
Okay.
Jared is here. He raised his hand before you did.
Okay.
You are next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just kind of getting caught up. What's in Exhibit A? Is that what is in the state code? The ILCS 120? So all these requirements, I believe Madam Chair was just mentioning those, you have to have a personal illness or disability, those requirements in order to be allowed to video conference in a meeting. That's what's on the state law. And if I'm understanding correctly, we can't provide more qualifications for video conferencing then, could we? We couldn't say, well, you don't need to meet one of those requirements. We just allow it as we do now. We can't do that. Is that correct?
That would be correct, Mr. Sanchez. So the statute only permits attendance remotely if there's already a physical quorum in the room,
Right.
you've given advance notice, and you cannot attend because of one of these three reasons that it's on under number 2 of Exhibit A. Those are the only circumstances.
So we couldn't.
There
create-
are,
Uh-huh.
if there is an emergency, however,
Right.
a
right.
public health emergency, which there currently is a current disaster declaration in place. If the chairperson makes a determination that in-person presence is not practical or prudent,
Mhm.
then they can allow remote access. And it's a little bit, you do not have to have a physical quorum in
Mhm.
that sense. So you would have either the option of the disaster declaration
Mhm.
relating to a public health emergency, or remote attendance without consideration of a public health emergency. And they would only have the 3 reasons that were iterated by Madam
Okay.
Chair.
So absent the emergency declaration, this is as loose as the rules can get.
That is correct, unless the legislature amended the statute.
Thank you.
Yeah, just, Ms. Neerman, I want to point out that there are more clauses here than in the statute because we wanted to provide a guideline, not for example, the equipment, it should be the responsibility of the person who is attending via video. He has to provide it, not the Kane County.
Mr. Chairman, does this then include all of the stuff in the statute already with those additions included? Or was there
No, the
anything from the statute removed?
As I know, the statutes covers the first 4, I believe, definitely.
Okay.
Maybe 4, definitely. And there are additional terms or clauses added to guide the members.
Thank you. Thank you.
I believe that would be correct, Dr. Iqbal.
That's,
One other thing, Ms. Neerman,
I'm
when I-
sorry.
when I first read it, it appeared that the chairman of the committee could make his own rule. as to the attendance but I can't find it here. Is it true or not true?
Could you
The
repeat that?
chairman of a committee, can he lax these rules?
And absent no, he could not.
He could not, okay.
Absent a public health emergency.
Okay, so this would apply to not only to the board meeting, but also to the committee meetings.
It is correct. We were suggesting that this be added in 247. And then the rules that apply to the county board are applied to the standing committees pursuant to a little provision in 248.
Okay, good, thank you.
Mhm.
No, Ms. Bates, you were saying something.
Yes, thank you. Well, I got that answer, that question answered, but now the one Jared, Mr. Sanchez asked. But I'm thinking of things like terrible weather. What would happen if we were having a blizzard outside and I wanted to Zoom instead of coming in to be safer?
Michelle Neerman from the State's Attorney's Office. The statute does provide for an emergency. So the exemption is a member cannot attend because of a family or other emergency. There is no definition of emergency in that sense. So it would be up to interpretation.
And none of this, Mr. Chairman, none of this can be ameliorated without the help, without a change to the legislation. Correct? None of it can
Correct.
be lightened.
Correct. You cannot add other exemptions.
Mr. Chairman. Yeah.
Mr. Williams.
Michelle, am I correct in my reading of the exhibit A that
Who's
You-
speaking, please?
Williams,
Thank you.
you can only participate via video conference, not audio? Because I articulated some concerns about that, but we've had some members of our own body with some health issues recently. And if they're in the hospital, I don't think we should require them to attend by a video. I think they should have the option to attend via audio. I mean,
Right.
it just, and I know that a lot of the members of this body who attend by Zoom now don't have their picture up. I would think that doesn't qualify as video if we can't see your face and actually moving. Is that correct? You know,
That would be correct, Mr. Williams. The consensus, I believe, at the executive committee was to require video presence. The statute does permit audio or video, so it is a policy decision for the board to make as to whether they would like to also allow the audio attendance.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
Thanks.
Ms. Bates.
Bates, please. There's an old saying, don't try to be holier than God. And I would say in this case, if the state legislature is allowing video and audio, that should be what we go for. And not restrict ourselves more than necessary.
Okay. Madam Chair will answer it.
Thank you, Corinne Pirog. Emergency, so I'd like to address that quickly. It's my understanding that if we do have inclement weather, massive tornado warning, or snow, et cetera, ice storm, that working with the courts as well as with IDOT, if I feel that, or this office feels that travel would be dangerous, that I could declare a temporary emergency for that specific meeting to request that we go have a meeting go virtually. Is that correct? It is my understanding that there has to be, from having worked with state committees, that there has to be a physical presence here at where the meeting is taking place, so that if a public member does come, they are welcomed and able to participate and listen to the meeting.
Michelle Neerman from the State's Attorney's Office. The statute currently, in its current state, only allows for emergency situations in that nature to apply to public health emergencies. The legislature did not provide for any other types of emergencies. So in that case, you would have, and you adopted these regulations or this ordinance amendment, you would, as long as you had a physical quorum here of whichever public body was meeting. There, other members who could not make it in because of the emergency could participate remotely. But you would still have to have a quorum present. If the legislature amended the statute to provide for other types of emergencies and other disaster declarations, then, you know, we could follow that. But
Local emergencies.
that does not currently exist.
There
And
must be a quorum present.
it must be a quorum present. And is it, what is the fallout if a meeting is canceled or postponed? There is none. If we can't get here because of local snow, local whatever, the meeting can be rescheduled without issue.
Absolutely.
So that common sense would dictate that. Probably the other one that's going to be a little bit more snarky is the video or audio. We talked about previously, Chairman, that there was a request made, and I think may have been by myself, that if we are going into closed executive session, that we want to assure that anybody who is participating via video is, or participating is not doing it via phone, or not participating with their camera off. Can we require that? Is that appropriate?
Yes, you could require that.
I think video, this is Williams again, I think video should always be the preferred option. But there are times when audio is just necessary, I think.
But how would you, I certainly appreciate where you're coming from with that. But do you feel for closed session when there's sensitive information being spoken about that? What's your opinion, Mr. Williams?
My opinion on I agree with you on closed session. I think that, let's take a situation where someone's on a hospital bed, right? They can turn their camera on for 30 seconds, verify they're there and turn it off. I think that's the way we would handle it. Just so you can verify, because that's important. It's very important that we don't violate the sanctity of the closed session. We verify that everyone who's on the closed session is supposed to be there. But I think we need to respect some privacy when necessary.
So that would have to be all via Zoom and not just phone.
Yes.
Okay.
So what do you feel about that?
So, Madam Chair, you had proposed these changes. Do you want them to go into effect right away, or would you rather wait till the emergency is over?
I heard, it was anecdotally, that the president has extended the federal government has extended the emergency, the COVID emergency until the end of April. So I would assume that the state would continue that until the federal emergency releases that time. There's a new variant going around. They're concerned. So it's going to continue on till April. I have no idea if it's going to be stopped at that point. We just don't know, but we have to be prepared for this, because many of our board members, and including myself, have stepped in at the time of COVID. So we've been used to having a great deal of flexibility. Some of our previous board members, Mr. Sanchez, Mr. Iqbal, you were under the restraints of the original Open Meetings Act, not the amended Open Meetings Act. So you are comfortable with this, both of you, because you've been used to this. It's only been new for the last several years that we've been under a different way of holding meetings, and that Zoom has come into prominence. I mean, it really has changed in the last 2 years. So this is a way to prepare our board members for whether for their work or for their personal needs, that this is going to have to change, and to make sure that we get consensus going into the February board meeting, that everybody is prepared for what is yet to come, and it's going to come quickly.
Mr. Chairman, Linder here. I think it's important. I think we all understand this, but as we go to the board meeting, there will need to be an understanding that if we don't pass a set of rules such as this, when the emergency declaration is over, there is no remote attendance. We have to pass a set of rules that conform to the statute in order for us to have remote access once the thing is over. If we don't pass rules, there's no remote access.
Mr. Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I was gonna suggest similarly, this resolution, if we need it in April, we could pass it next month and just have it to go into effect once the emergency declaration is lifted. So we don't have to wait and worry if our timelines match up. We can get this resolution together more quickly in
Correct.
anticipation.
Correct. We've, if I may, it's Corinne Pirog again. There had been conversation comments by fellow board members who have said, well, it's more convenient for me. I want to participate in local activities, best representing my district, and the commute is onerous. There have been people who have mentioned that it's much more comfortable and opportune for them just to pop in and not to do the travel. All that is appreciated, and that's what Zoom technology does allow. But there has been other comments made, and I think all of you have hope have been speaking to your constituents who have said this is voluntary. You ran for office to serve, and service, and I'm just speaking from what the public has shared with me. As a public body, we would like to see you working together. We feel that you best serve our needs by being here at the board and participating fully in physical presence, unless there are certain restrictions. Obviously, if you're ill, just stay home, or stay where you can get better. But just as a convenience because of travel, people I've spoken to from the public don't feel that that is a viable reason.
Madam, Mr. Chairman, Bates,
Yeah,
please.
Ms. Bates.
I have a couple comments here. I really believe that I try to come to all of the meetings in person that I'm on the roll call. So I believe that that's the best way to do it. And I also feel that there are many reasons not to restrict this for our members. For one thing, we are never out of session. If you understand what I mean, the state legislature is only in session for a few months out of the year. If I want to visit my family, my daughter in New York, or my sister out in California, I pretty much have to take it while we are in session, because we're always in session. I think, to be able to travel does require the use of video or audio when we are out of town. We all volunteered for this position. We all fought hard for this position. And I think that that we should put the fewest limitations on this as possible. I think it's somewhat old-fashioned, maybe, to think that people are much more effective in face-to-face than in person. I think you'll see that the offices in downtown Chicago are emptying out because people are finding that people who work remotely are actually more productive than they used to be, than when they have to drive in. So I personally plan to be there for all of my meetings, but I don't want to put that burden on any of us if it's not necessary. It's also greener to stay home, keep your stinky cars off the road. And yes, if we have other obligations, Martin Luther King Day was last night. There's always things going on in the districts that if we want to just get on Zoom, get off of Zoom, get to a meeting here in town, I think it works out for the best. So I'll be there, and let's not put restrictions on ourselves that are not necessary. And sometimes audio is the only way I think people can do it. I mean, maybe you can do Zoom on an iPhone, but, and I'd like to understand if there's a legal difference between being on audio or being on video. Because if I sometimes use my phone to dial in and my caller ID is right there. I'd like to know what the legal difference is. Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
done.
Ms. Bates. Ms. Neerman.
Thank you, Dr. Iqbal. Just to answer the last point of Ms. Bates, there is no definition of audio or video in the Open Meetings Act, I don't believe. Audio is only listening, video is a picture. The statute provides for either or. So it's up to the board. That is a policy call for the board if they want to pick one, both, or none. That's within the board's purview. Just to clarify, just to make sure that everyone understands what the legal restrictions are, however, any type of vacation or travel would not be permissible for remote attendance under the state statute as it currently stands. You would have to have a family or other emergency. You can't, the member can't attend because of employment purposes or the business of the county board, and the member can't attend because of personal illness or disability. Vacations or pleasure, leisure travel are not covered currently under the statute, just so that everyone is aware what the statute provides.
Okay, thank you. I think we had enough discussion. Anybody who wants to have another comment, anything else? Or
Is,
should we close it?
So I believe the only decision, sir, that we have to make, just for my own clarification, it's Corinne Pirog speaking. Do we want to include both video and audio? Should we be more specific? Should it be Zoom? I'm not aware of any other platform that has FaceTime.
There is, Microsoft has meetings. It might be
Teams.
included someday.
My thought on that is it should be the
Ms.
video.
Bates, one second. Mr. William is,
My thoughts on that, it should be the technology that we as a county use, that would be Zoom, so that would be the only way to appear. As far as the decision, to when to use audio versus video. I think that for a full county board meeting, we should require video. I think for committee meetings, we should require video unless there's a compelling reason, in which case audio could apply. And as part of the notification process to the clerk, there could be a request for audio and a stated reason. And I think Madam Chair could approve that based upon her discretion and the circumstances. So that I would want to amend this Exhibit A to reflect that.
I need to clarify.
yes, sir. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, one of the things I think we want to avoid is not be too strict. Rules are rules. I think we need to be flexible. One of the things in the state, one was you had to be in an event, but you had to give a 48-hour notice. I think that sometimes you're not going to know until the day of, your car breaks down. Also, sometimes internet is down. And so, to me, that's a valid exception. If I can't get on the internet, I can't really use Zoom. But, I can maybe get my phone to work, because sometimes, believe it or not, technology gets in the way and people have trouble. So why I think what we should do is do a recommendation. Here's our recommended method that we should be doing, but be flexible when there's exceptions, because we don't want people, we're all professionals, so we should be trying to do what is best for our voters, right? So that's just my
Okay,
comment.
thank you, Mr. Roth.
So,
Any other comments?
I need a clarification. This is Linder. We keep talking about the chairman approving. And my understanding is that the chairman announces to the board if this is who's on a remote, whether it's audio, video, whatever, and that the board has the opportunity to object to that and vote by 2/3. Isn't that the way it's written, Michelle? I don't
Okay.
see any place that the chairman actually approves or disapproves of someone's attendance.
We've had a couple drafts, so let me refresh my memory here. I believe that is correct, Mr. Linder. it says after establishing a quorum is physically present at a meeting where a member desires to attend electronically, the presiding officer, so it'd be the chairman, Madam Chair for the county board, or any committee chair for any committee. Let's see, the presiding officer shall state that the member is present by video conference and has notified the clerk in accordance with the rules. The member will be deemed authorized to attend the meeting by video conference unless a motion objecting to the member's electronic attendance is made, seconded, and approved by 2/3 of the members of the county board physically present at the meeting.
Michelle, but that's in our ordinance. Does the state law require that?
That is not required by the state
Yeah,
law.
I think that was your question.
No, my question was sort of some of each. But I was going at what we had written here. My understanding of, I don't know, I've read what so many other places do, and I don't know what is that they sometimes take an affirmative vote to allow people in. But I don't think there's a reason not to allow someone in if they've complied with, they've given their.
But if we're voting as a,
Dude.
I'm sorry, Michelle.
The statute provides that a majority have to approve, a majority of the board has to approve this. And so I think the way it's been interpreted is if the board adopts these, the majority vote adopts the rules. I think the 2/3 was put in there just because that's the number we need to suspend our rules.
So we've got another issue now that this committee has got to decide upon. Are we going to keep that? Do you want to, the 48-hour notice, I believe that is for just announcement of the public body that we're going to be having a meeting in the statute. And that's on number 7.
So if the board is voting on whether a member can attend, and this assumes the emergency order is rescinded, if the board is voting on whether the member can attend by video or audio, are we going to have a conversation, an open session regarding somebody's medical condition?
There-
I don't want to vote on that. And plus it's going to add time to our meeting. I think we could delegate that to the chair and let her decide whether it's a valid request. That's my opinion.
If I may, I would agree with that 100%. You may feel fine at 10 o'clock the previous night and you wake up in the morning and something's happened and you have a high fever and it's best that you stay home. You'd be prudent and stay home. And you get the call and I'm sure stay home, take the meeting at home. So I think that's best practices. I really do. I think the other one is incredibly restrictive and invasive.
Well, I think the statute, Linda, again, the statute does say, or if practical, that you give that much notice. If it's not practical because you just woke up sick this morning, it's not practical that you gave notice yesterday. So that part is taken care of in the statute. I think in our language just says as soon as possible. It doesn't give any specific number of hours or days. So I don't think that's a problem. I think I like what Ms. Neerman said. If she said it the way, if I understand what she said that if we adopt these rules, we could within the rules say, okay, now somebody who has given notice and given a reason is allowed in without a further vote. Is that what you said? If we've adopted the rules, we don't need to vote each time?
Yes, it's way, I think that it's been implemented in practice in other jurisdictions.
So if I know Mr. Linder, you're telling me that you're going to for work, or that you're going to be gone this week. You'll be in Texas for meetings. And I know that ahead of time and, you'll be Zooming in or phoning in. you have approval. And then you just come in and noted that you are zooming in or you're attending virtually. But if you get ill in the morning and as practical, you send an email, may I attend virtually? Because of the obvious reasons I'm ill. I would say yes, absolutely. And that you would just once again come on via phone or Zoom. And it would just be you're attending virtually and without having to give appropriate reason why.
And then I'm.
But you do have to assert one of those reasons.
Do you publicly have to do that?
No, you would have to let the clerk know.
The clerk would know.
And you would simply, you don't have to provide all the details. You simply have to assert a reason.
Mhm.
So I have a
Yes.
family emergency. I cannot attend personally today,
Mhm.
period.
I'm reading this again, and so I think I just answered my own question. So the way it would work is I can't be there. I email the clerk, Madam Chair approves, but 2/3 of the board can revoke that authority. So if we have a member of the board who abuses this, the rest of us would have the ability to say, no, you have to be, you're not going to count, or you gotta be here in person. So I think that works, actually.
It's okay. Then.
Rod,
With technology, would a text be sufficient or does it need to be email?
That could be rules.
Technology today. It's a record, it's a written record.
So technology, you're suggesting.
Would a text be acceptable? if Someone text that they couldn't make it.
I would email by email.
You'd be texting Jack Cunningham. He's the clerk. So
That who we need to text?
That the clerk, that was my question.
I read that as the recording clerks who run the meetings.
Well, and
Is it the clerk's office or is it the recording secretary?
We
Or
can
the-
set that, we can decide that.
or is it the chair?
The statute provides either the recording secretary or clerk of the public body. So we could add in their recording secretary just to be clear.
Okay.
That would be much more immediate than having to go through the clerk.
yes.
Mr. Chairman,
just hold on, Ms. Bates, Mr. Caius is next.
And so the recording clerk would be the person that's doing the recording, like in this meeting would be this person over here.
Chris, as we call her.
Christine would be it.
Christine.
Perhaps we should send it to,
There's all kinds of complications. It seems.
Jane
to me
Tallish?
Rising.
Yeah, is there like a general email address we could use and actually put that in here? Because there's different clerks at different meetings.
Right, you wouldn't know.
Or could it be the chair?
all right, let's,
I think it would be fantastic. I know Roger's department has set up unique email addresses in the past. And I'm sure he could set up a very nice email address for this specific purpose.
And then somebody has to check it
Thank you.
every
Ms.
day.
Bates is next. Ms. Bates?
And then somebody has to check that email every day. It gets very complicated.
Linda, he could set up that email so that when something comes into that email, it notifies both of our two regular recorders and the chair every time it comes in. And I could do that. It's easy.
so that would, to your point, if
I'm
I
not
may,
volunteering.
there'd be backup, Ms. Bates.
Okay. Yeah, next is Mr. Roth.
So going back to my question,
Okay.
would text be allowable if for some reason they aren't able to email? Like okay, I'm just asking. You know, you're driving, your car breaks down, you're not going to make it.
I don't know that the recording, this is Sanchez here, I don't know that the recording clerks have individual cell phone numbers that would receive a text. I believe they just have desk phones. It would make sense to me to, excuse me, to email the recording clerks as well as the chairman of the committee or the board so that you're double covered in case Christine's not here today, Savannah's covering the meeting. You didn't know that, but at least Mr. Iqbal got the notification as well. Just a suggestion.
Thank you.
If I could
Yeah, Mr.
suggest.
Chairman, go ahead.
If I could suggest that we would talk to IT to set up a special email address and then additionally designate the county board office phone number, the main office phone number, as the phone number to call if you are not able to attend.
Email and email. If unable to email, follow up with phone call.
Thank you. That answers that question.
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Pyatt,
is
sir.
there a legal reason that it can't be a text?
That would be a policy decision for the board to make. It says, it doesn't
I know
specify
you
the
don't.
means in the statute. However, as Mr. Sanchez pointed out, I'm not sure that all of the I don't know that any of the recording secretaries have a county assigned cell phone. I mean, yeah, that's something you can certainly explore.
Roger is next. Roger wants to.
Mr. Chairman, just for the sake of records, it'd be easier to use email. Text is something that would be carrier specific. And if we wanted to get actual records of it, we would have to get carrier records for your texts.
Okay.
So I think it'd be much easier to stick to email. We can build a distribution list, send it to everybody and anybody that wants it. It could be the recording secretaries, the county, the chairman of the committees, and pretty much anybody that wants an email. And you can actually email that to a text message if you want to, but it would go through the mail gateway and then we would have a permanent record so you could track it.
Thank you, Mr. Fronstock. I think we have, covered
I just want to restate, Michelle gave the option if for some reason someone couldn't email, there would be a number they could call.
The draft currently provides, as soon as reasonably practical, let's see, I'm sorry. Any member who desires to attend a meeting remotely by video conference must notify and we will add recording secretary or the clerk as soon as reasonably practical prior to the start of the meeting by email and or phone and then we can fill in the blank.
All right.
It would just be a policy decision. I'm not sure where we are in the discussion here. Is either or okay for the committee? Either email or phone?
I'd recommend email as a preference.
Yes.
And then there again, let's not be too rigid here. Let's be flexible if some issue comes up.
Or if email is not available via phone.
Right.
And if you don't have phone service, then
Carrier pigeon.
soon as you get to a place, make a phone call.
Mr. Chairman?
oh, yes, go ahead.
So I understand what we have here. In what ways is this more restrictive than we absolutely have to do for the state legislation? In what ways are we making this more difficult for our members than the state legislature has
More difficult?
defined?
I don't think it's more difficult, but Ms. Neerman, would you say it's more difficult?
Is this more restrictive than the state legislature?
We've added in here based upon comments received. In essence, what we did was we took the statute, we took various comments received from different board members and kind of melded everything together. So starting with number 6, I guess, there are added procedures. I don't know that they're all that difficult to comply with. I think it's just simply to kind of address some issues that might arise that some board members thought of. For example, if there's background noise, it allows the IT person or the whoever is hosting the meeting to mute a board member if that member is not at the time speaking or voting, if there's background noise, say. You know, it's different things like that so that you have sort of a procedure in place.
What about the emailing or the the emailing to the chairman, is that above and beyond the state legislature?
The state statute requires that the member must notify the recording secretary or clerk of the public body before the meeting unless advance notice is impractical, is the way the statute's worded. So this just again provides who you notify and how you notify.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Madam Chair.
And did we cover the closed meetings? Did we put policy or suggestion for additional policy on that and controls?
Yes, number 12 addresses that, Madam Chair. It says at an executive session or closed session of the county board, the member attending remotely by video conference must comply with the privacy and confidentiality requirements of the meeting and confirm such compliance on the record, which may include demonstrating via video that no one else is in the room with the member.
That does not include telephone. We had that conversation, whether or not we would allow phone.
That is correct, Madam Chair. To ensure that we have all of the comments that the committee actually wants to incorporate, I would maybe suggest that amendments be made to the document, and then we would have a clear record of what you would like to see in the document.
I think what we discussed on that was the member would turn on his or her video, verify that's actually the member and no one else is in the room, and then turn off the camera, just like some of our members are on right now with their cameras off. And then Michelle, did you note that we were going to have the ability to do audio at the discretion of the chair? Either Madam Chairman or the chair of the committee. Except for closed session.
If we could maybe have a little bit more detail provided in terms of the scenarios when audio is acceptable, I think that would be helpful. So if I'm hearing things correctly, if you are in closed session, you turn on your video, confirm no one else is in the room, and then it's acceptable to turn off the video.
I
And
would limit that to certain circumstances at the discretion of Madam Chair. For instance, someone's in the hospital. Right? I mean, that's where where instances where we need to respect the privacy of the
Okay.
member. That's when the video should be off in a closed session.
Sanchez, if I might,
Yeah, Mr.
it
Sanchez,
seems
go
maybe
ahead.
it would be better to going along this line of thinking, suggest that video is required, but then have a list of exceptions. So in this instance, if you're in the hospital or something like that, then you could, not have your video on in closed session, just turn it on for a brief moment to let us know, something along those lines.
I think that works.
Be more clean that way.
Okay. Yeah, Ms. Neerman, in light of the discussion, would it be better to eliminate item 13? That says categorically that we should not have audio?
yes. Yes, we can do that.
I think so.
I am a little concerned about, if I might suggest, just if we could just do a little brainstorming on the circumstances when audio only is permissible. So when privacy interests require, when you're at a committee meeting versus a county board meeting, were there any other circumstances when audio is permissible?
I have one other, from a technology point of view, there's sometimes you're not getting enough bandwidth. And so you can't really do the video,
That's true.
so there again, I keep coming back, we need to be flexible on how we implement. this.
Linda, here, so could we just say if the member asserts that video is not available?
Yes, but I'd like to control it. If you are working, will we just allow audio? Is that a rationale, or are we going to be restricting it to special circumstances as in privacy needs? Because are we
Privacy
going,
or not available, I would think.
I'm sorry.
His circumstance with the bandwidth isn't there, it's not available. But I don't think it should be just willy-nilly.
But you're not gonna know that ahead of time, whether you have the bandwidth or not. That's a problem.
Mhm.
You might be wherever you are and just have a bad signal.
But then would the restriction be if video is not available to technological difficulties or technical difficulties or?
We could always ask Roger for a technical definition. Sorry.
Okay, yes, Mr. Fonstra.
One of the things that I would be concerned about is the quality of the connection and there's really no way to troubleshoot or correct that, right before the meeting. So I think if you don't have audio or video, that's required for the meeting, that you wouldn't participate in the meeting. There's just no way that you're going to dance around that issue.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay. So at this point, any other discussion, any other comment?
Because it's so difficult to list the exceptions or, when audio is. Would you be amenable to just permitting audio or video at all times? I just think you might find yourselves in a never-ending list of scenarios and exceptions that you need to address.
Why can't we just defer to the chairman on that? Based upon the circumstances that are presented in the request. This is a rule. It's not, it's just our internal rule. So I think we need to give some flexibility to Madam Chairperson.
Mr. Chairman, Bates, please.
Yes, Ms. Bates.
I think Ms. Neerman has a very good point. If we just say audio or video at any time, it eliminates that long list of exceptions that we might run into. And I go back to my question, legally, is it different to be on audio than on Zoom? Either way, I'm on the end of a telephone wire.
That would be one situation where this is more restrictive than the state statute, because the state statute does say other means is video or audio conference. So to add them.
So that would be, that could be audio or video. So, and another point I'd like, Mr. Chair, may I make another point?
Yeah, go ahead.
To say that we have to be present for our big county board meetings, but not present for committees is not pointing out that the real work gets done in the committees. So I would say that the board meetings and the committees are equally important. And I would like to see audio and video allowed at both types of meetings. And I plan to be there, but I'm still willing to say there might be exceptions. We should allow for exceptions.
But
Yes, Madam Chair.
But exceptions only can occur within the restraints of the requirements of the Open Meetings Act. So if you are on employment issues, if you are doing the business of the county, if you are ill, or if there's an emergency. Those are the only three. It's not just for everyday attendance at a meeting.
But audio or video is allowed in the statute, correct, Ms. Newman?
That is correct.
Ms. Bates, the statute is very stringent on those three conditions. It's very specific.
Okay.
If you qualify for one of those, then probably I think whether it's audio or video probably doesn't matter, because of very few occasions that you will be able to use them.
I can picture sitting in an emergency room with a family member and being able to use my phone but not video. It could happen easily. Thank you. I'll stop talking for a
Yeah.
while. I'll put on mute.
Okay. All right, so I think we have discussed enough. So for the amendments, how should we go about it? Should we take a vote on the amendments? What are those amendments, if you can go over so everyone knows what they are? Say, item
Absolutely.
1, anything? If you go down the line and let us know what you wrote down, so we have.
So we have the title, which it says remote attendance and meetings by video conferencing. I guess we need to determine whether or not we're adding audio into the title. Number 2, item number 2. Any member who,
Could I
oh,
just
yes.
stop you one? So on the heading, what would you say? Just simply say remote attendance at the meetings and cut out the video conferencing?
we could certainly do that.
Okay. Then going down,
You could say by other means that would, that's what the statute says.
so line 3, we see video conferencing, what will we say? By remote attendance, that's what it is?
In the first paragraph,
Yeah, first paragraph, yeah, remote attendance.
we need to specify whether it's by audio or video or both.
Audio or video? Audio or video or both, okay.
The other means is defined in the statute to be by video or audio conference.
Okay,
Well, couldn't we just say by other means and then in exhibit A address when, preference for video and then when audio is permitted?
Yes, you could certainly do that. We would probably, I would recommend adding a definition of other means.
It reference a meeting within the Open Meetings Act, essentially, right? As defined by the Open Meetings Act.
As long as there's some clarity into when you can use
Okay.
either means.
So going down number 4, second line, it says attend electronically, and this is different than, what we have discussed. Is that to attend remotely?
Yes, that should be remotely.
Okay. No, third line is again video conference. Video would say video or audio. Or are we okay with video?
Remotely, period.
Yes, Mr.
To say remotely, period.
Okay, remote parents, okay. Okay. Okay, again in line 4 and 5. Instead of by video conference, I will say remotely. And third, 5th line again, they say the electronic attendance, and that should become remote attendance.
I'm sorry, was that paragraph 6?
Do you want to keep 2/3 or
What number is
I
that?
believe the
Oh.
remote, if we're going to use remotely, remote is the key word.
So
Rather than electronic.
rather than a remote to the word,
I would believe so.
okay, that's what I did. No, that's,
I think I was thinking of an avatar. I was thinking remotely coming in as an avatar. I thought that'd be very delightful.
Which number are we on?
4.
so, okay, so 2/3 of it require 2/3 of the member, the county board member to really override your decision. That's what it says.
Mhm.
Yes,
Okay, so let's go to number 5. That says remotely by video. So by video conferencing, should we cut it out?
yes.
That's kind of strange sentence, number 5.
Well,
Just do it,
Remo-
just
Yeah,
attending,
2
attending
times, video
remote.
conferences deleted 2 times.
mhm.
Are you going to do audio or are we just going to do remotely? Meaning, is remotely both audio and or video as defined? Can we just define it at one point and then just refer to remotely after that?
Yeah, okay. Okay, number 6 is important that, do you want to see his face, their face? When the member is speaking?
I think in that one, I would just say that we should see the member's face when attending by video, unless otherwise excused by the method we talked about if there's a privacy issue, which Michelle will have to work into
So
this
how would
ordinance.
we?
Which is
Mr. Chairman?
restricted, which is restricted, not.
Yes,
for-
Ms. Bates.
Has to be restricted.
You have any suggestion for
Um,
modifying the language?
I think it's distracting. And actually, I believe it's poor business practices to show your face all the time while other people are speaking or while there's a presentation going on. So maybe you should see your face at the beginning of the meeting, but to have to show your face at all times, well, it's distracting to have everybody's face showing. I've been told on meetings, turn off your cameras when other people are speaking or giving a presentation.
No, no.
Okay, what this paragraph is saying that your face should be visible to other people when you are speaking, when you are participating,
Oh,
not when you are sitting and listening.
I would disagree with that. It says at all times.
Mhm.
And here the.
And I disagree with the comment because everybody who's sitting here can see our faces, right? We're here live. If you're attending by video, unless there's a compelling reason, why shouldn't they be able to see your face as well?
Okay,
I would agree with that. You are an elected official, and as such, this is not a business forum.
all time and hear the comments. So we should leave it as is.
Mr. Chair, the one exception would be a technical reason, like the bandwidth. You can do Zoom, but turning on your camera causes issues. But that should be the exception, not the norm.
But that, yeah, that kills everything audio, this paragraph.
It's Linder here, back up for me. Are we saying video, audio, whatever you want to do? Or are we saying video unless video's not practical or available, in which case you're doing audio? Or are
No.
we just saying choose, do whatever you want?
choose one.
I agree. That's the way I would recommend it.
But do whatever you want.
No, the other. When you have technical, or if there's some reason you can't do video, then audio.
I think we're saying it's video
Okay,
unless there's a privacy issue for the member. Or if
technically or physically. not
technical issue,
possible.
although I think Roger's point to that was if that's the case, you might as well just not be counted. Because how are we going to prove you have bandwidth issues? Are we going to have people who say, yeah, I have.
I mean, we got to
bandwidth
trust
issues?
each other at some point. I mean,
Well-
and they're gonna, people are abusing it, it'll come to the surface, right?
Well, it would force, 2/3 could,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right. So that's a check and balance. That's correct.
Should we qualify it saying that member participating if feasible, if commercially feasible, if reasonably feasible?
I like the word preferable.
Hmm?
Preferable.
Preferably, okay.
I think we're saying mandatory unless there's an exception. And that exception would be privacy or technology.
I'm fine with that.
And that was Jared's point before he left. So I think it's a good point.
So what should I say? Unless unless otherwise prohibited by privacy concerns?
By privacy concerns or technology issues as determined by the chairman. Because the technology we may or may not know of in advance, but the privacy you will know. If I'm in the hospital with a condition and I don't want my condition exhibited to the public, I will contact you and tell you why, and then you will say yes or no. And if you say no, I won't attend.
Mhm,
It's up to the member.
truly. No, it is. And you all have control. And I think to your point, and I've recently experienced that as well. I tried to attend via Zoom when I was in the car, and it was just not good at all. So I transferred it over and I listened to the meeting. I did not participate. I chose to listen. So that I wouldn't be distracted from trying to switch my phone over back and forth as I was driving. So I think we should be grownups here and know what we can do and cannot do. And if there's a comment that one has to make after a meeting, after hearing the meeting, then you can always go back to the chair and have that discussion after the meeting, post-meeting.
Okay, okay, we are down to number 6, I wrote that at the end of the paragraph where it say member participating, I wrote comma, unless otherwise prohibited by privacy concerns or technological barriers
Good.
or unavailability
I'd say technical issues.
issues, okay,
That's broad enough then.
okay. Number 7 is pretty easy.
Dr.
I think
Iqbal,
there's nothing there.
did you want to incorporate Mr. Williams' concept that it should be excused by the chair
Determined by the chair?
as determined by the chair?
For what? For
For
what
privacy
purpose?
issues.
Well, she has to determine both technology and privacy. not one
Technology,
or
she
the
may
other.
or may not be able to determine in advance.
She is the arbiter.
Yeah, and it may happen to one of your meetings, Mr. Iqbal. Any chair, when somebody's trying to remote in, there may be an immediate issue that you have to make the call on. The chair.
Yeah. Number 7 is pretty clear. Number 8 is the one, it mentions via video conferencing, and I would put it remotely. Member attending the meeting remotely shall have their microphones off during the meeting unless they are called to vote or otherwise recognized by the chair to be an active speaker.
That's fine.
Number 9. Okay, that's a pretty common. The county staff hosting the video conference, hosting the remote connection, I would say.
Maybe
No
it should say
problem.
managing would be a better word than hosting.
Pardon?
I mean, Blair is not hosting the meeting, he's managing it electronically for us now.
I would say managing, okay. But technically, he is the host when.
He is the host, and I would say host. The county is the host.
I think under Zoom, I think, and under some of the software.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Called hosts.
Managing the remote attendance. Has the right to mute microphone, which they do, which is not. Okay, so number 9 is pretty easy. Number 10. Okay, it's again via video conferencing. While in remote attendance, I would say.
That won't apply.
Mr. Chairman, you can't share a screen if you're doing audio.
Who makes it
It is only video. You can share a screen.
number 10?
There's no screen sharing when you're doing on the phone only.
There's no screen.
There's no screen.
Member who makes a presentation at the meeting while.
Can only share a screen when using video.
Problem there is that the member might be not sharing their presence. So the video camera might not be on them. Their video might be turned off, but they still might be able to share their screen.
Like Mr. Tepe right now, his picture's not, or his video's not on. But is he attending by video or is he attending by audio? I would say he's attending by audio.
If there's you normally will say
Oh, with
a
two
phone number when you're doing audio.
Yeah, but you can attend via audio only on Zoom, either by calling into the Zoom number or just by having your screen off.
Right.
So I think that, not to make this even more
Let me-
complicated.
Let me say one thing. I think this video conferencing word should stand because it pertains to video conferencing issue. So we should leave it as is.
I think
Yes,
so.
sir.
It's
Yes.
what I was saying, trying to say, yes.
Okay, number 11, instead of video conferencing, I think we should cross out the word by video conference. I'd say remotely is good enough.
Agreed.
Yes.
Okay. Number 12, which is the last one. Should we? Does the problem pertain to both video and audio or just audio or video?
You can't prove on audio that no one else is in the room.
Mr. Chairman, Bates, please. Bates, please, sir.
Yes, Ms. Bates?
So this stipulation that we have to show that no one else is in the room, we've never had to do that before. So I think I just can't picture picking up my computer and showing you my room or something. We've never done that before. I don't think it's necessary.
If I may, Mr. Iqbal, my concern, particularly for closed session minutes, Ms. Bates, that you have to have some kind of guarantees that there's no one else in the room. That's why, to me, it was very important, specifically only for closed session, that we see you at all possible, but I mean, if you're participating remotely, that we're able to see you fully, so that the sacredness, if I were, the privacy of that conversation is represented as it would be if you were here in attendance. So it's just important because there's unique information that sometimes is spoken about.
Of course.
No, this is a tricky one. If it's a video, you can show that nobody there, but audio, how do you do that?
You cannot. I mean, you can
You cannot.
do your phone, but it won't.
Yeah,
Mr. Chair,
yes,
can I speak? Can you hear me?
yes, yes,
Okay.
Warren. Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to add kind of that I don't think that anybody remotely should be able to go into an executive session. I'll tell you the key reason why is that I have software wherein I could right now record this meeting. I could easily record it right here on my computer. And it's software that's easy to get. So I could make a recording of an executive meeting and no one would be the wiser.
I could do that on my phone. Right here.
Do that on your phone too.
Yeah.
And you could do that here in person. Someone could,
I would suggest that for executive meetings that we no longer allow anybody to attend remotely.
That's not objectionable to me.
Is that in the statute, Ms. Neerman?
Ms. Bates, would you please repeat?
Mr. Chairman, if I may speak. Ms. Neerman, is there anything in the statute that says that remote members may not attend an executive session?
Is there in a statute, Ms. Neerman?
There is not that level of specificity, no. But the board could certainly adopt that regulation because you have the control over whether someone can attend remotely or not.
Has that ever happened? That someone was remote and had an executive session and recorded it?
Yep.
And blabbed?
Yes. Madam Chair could answer that.
I don't know about the last statement, but we do know that there has been sensitive information that has been presented to executive session that has been some surprisingly leaked out to the press.
But that wasn't necessarily by a person who was remote, correct?
We have no knowledge of that.
Correct.
So certainly, people bring their cell phones to the meeting. They can privately turn on the recording device here and take that out with them. They can certainly do the same when they are in the privacy of their office or wherever they'd be taking the remote meeting. They can also have people in that room with them, listening. There's nothing to prevent any of that except our guarantees as board members that the privacy of an executive meeting remains within that room and that discussion remains confidential.
Yes.
But we have seen as of last year that not to be the case. And that happened a number of times.
Mr. Roth.
doesn't that really fall under ethics? And if we don't have something in our ethics, maybe we need to add it there.
Certain circumstances, a recording would be a violation of criminal statute, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to comment on that at this point, but
But also, the leaks,
the
that falls under
leaks-
ethics in my thinking, not under video.
Unfortunately, there's not a lot we can do about leaks.
Right.
Other than to admonish or, basically you could adopt a resolution expressing your displeasure against the person who leaked. But otherwise, there's no good means of enforcing.
Or do like the NFL, to mute their microphone for a week.
Not familiar with that.
So,
Mr. Chair? This
yeah,
is
go ahead.
Chris Caius, I'm questioning if we just drop the last part of that phrase and we just like we do in the meetings, we ask people to comply with it. And that's, as Ms. Neerman says, that's as far as we can go, so that if we're stating in item 12, at an executive session, closed session, a member attend remotely must comply with the privacy and confidentiality requirements of the meeting and confirm such compliance on the record. In other words, state that that's the case, that it is. And that's essentially what we do. And then drop the last of it, which would be the humiliation of having someone demonstrate that they were in their, wherever they're at, by showing the room to everyone.
So what you're saying, we drop the later part of the sentence which says and confirm onward.
Well,
Everything
Which may include
After-
demonstrating a video.
after
Oh, I see.
after and confirm such compliance all the way to the period. Second line.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's right.
Okay, so that simplifies it. So it should not say by remotely by video conference then. It should say just remotely.
Yes,
Okay. So it looks like we are done. Number 13 is totally out.
right, out.
Yeah, so at this point, all these are friendly amendments, so I would like to get a consensus from the committee if you, Mr. William, would accept these amendments as part of your motion.
I would accept the amendments as part of my motion to approve.
Mr. Linder, is it okay with you? Yes. Thank you. So at this point, I will ask the clerk to take the roll.
Williams,
Yes.
Linder,
Yes.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Pirog,
Yes.
approved.
Thank you. So go ahead. ma'am.
Chair, will we be able to get a draft of this in a timely manner so that we can disseminate it to the entire board for their review? Because-
Certainly, do I have a Word document? I think I have.
She emailed us one.
I would be happy to take a first
Okay,
stab
if you
at
can
it,
do it,
and
that would
then
be
I can
great, yeah.
coordinate with Dr. Iqbal, and he can massage it or, tweak it.
You know, there actually may be some legal changes that we need, like to define what other means is, things like that. I
Yeah.
think we're all in agreement that what we voted on was the business terms of the ordinance, so to speak, and then Michelle can make it comply to the
Further.
law.
And so then perhaps pending Open Meetings Act, if each one of you could review it, the committee members, and make sure that it meets exactly what we had spoken about today, and then send your recommendations to Ms. Neerman. If there are any additional edits, so that she can put together a final draft then and send it out to the board. Would that be appropriate?
Yes, what I will do, I will designate our deputy chief, Aaron Brady. I will be leaving for vacation, so I will be a little bit unavailable. I will work on this draft today. I'll send it over to Dr. Iqbal, and then we can work in tandem with Ms. Brady, because I'm afraid at some point I'll be on vacation when you need the draft back.
Good, thank you.
Okay, so any others? We don't need executive session today. We don't have to confirm.
Unless you want to test it out.
Okay, awesome. A motion to adjourn.
I'll make second.
Thank you. So we are adjourned.
May I, Ms. Neerman, should I, at this point, remove suspend the ad hoc committee? Or should that will take place at the board meeting? 'Cause this should be the only meeting of it.
You could do either, Madam Chair, if you would like to have the meeting, if you think there might be a need for the committee to meet again to look over the draft, you could certainly keep it in place. Otherwise, you could simply suspend the committee.
What is your wish?
They keep it open, why not, just in case?
At the board meeting, I'll give you my report and request that the committee
Be suspended.
should retire or be dissolved.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
It's been a wonderful committee. Thank you.